it's Dustin with TWPD. Today we're doing another video. It's lots of videos today. So I got an iPad Pro 12.9 inch screen replacement. We're going to be using original premium parts from Apple. They are some of the best. So this is the device here on the hot plate instead of using a heat gun. So you can use a heat gun for this one and it's just fine, but today we are going to be doing that. And then I got the screen here, so from Injured Gadgets, and comes with the tape and everything. Always buy the best quality, so that way when you seal it up, you don't have to take it off. This one can be a little bit trickier because the cables are a little bit short to connect, and also the home button you have to glue down. You have to be really careful with the home button because you can rip and tear it, so warning, this is not an easy device to do. But if you have experience fixing iPads, then you'll have no problem fixing this one. Anyways, on to the video. Thanks, guys. It's Dustin with TWPD. A little quick commercial break. We got a product called Liquid Glass that can cover your phone against $400 in damages or even $150 against damages. And it's super cheap and it's good for a whole year with no deductible. I'm going to have a link in the description below describing the whole product and how the whole process works in a separate video. Thanks for watching. Now back to the video. All right, so we got the iPad warmed up and ready to rock and roll. I put it on the hot plate for a full 5 minutes at 100 degrees Celsius. Now, you could warm up quadrants with this, with like a heat gun, you know, at maximum heat, and then just separate the glass as you can. But warming it all at once is a little bit easier with the hot plate. So if it's starting to get more difficult, then you're going to need to warm it up more. Now here's the deal with this iPad. I just noticed, but it is bent. Yep, I feel bad for the customer. So we're gonna try to bend it back and see if we can get some solid, well, a flat surface so that way the new screen can sit down. You definitely want to look out for this kind of problem, because if you do have a bent iPad and you try to glue down the screen, it's just going to pop out, even with the toughest adhesive. And I'm going to use some strong stuff. I'm going to use some Gorilla Glue probably, or T8000. Okay, so we're just going to take out some pieces as we go here. This thing is humongous. Just using my Iflex tool to separate the glass. It's the best tool to get in here. And this is good for prying wise. Now if you want to salvage the screen, you could actually save a little bit of money and get it switched out with a new one if you're an owner. If you want to refurbish just the glass, basically, is what I'm saying. I sell them, so because I always want the new originals. Okay, I'm getting there. So I'm just holding this up, and it's getting a little irritating. So we're just going to put a tool under there so it just holds itself up. For this video, I'm using the iPhone XS Max as the main camera up here, and then for this one over here, we're using my OnePlus 7 Pro. Hopefully we get some action here, lifting action. What we're doing is trying to pull it towards the camera here and unstick it. Perfect. Okay, so those are very short cables here. And we are going to have to unscrew those. Kind of at an angle, it's not that easy to work with. Careful not to put too much pressure on this. You don't want to slip and break the board, just like my tool just slipped on me. All these tools are going to be in the link in the description, and parts as well. Okay, so before disconnecting this, make sure your iPad's off, but you should have already just turned it off. I just forgot to say it. So we're going to go ahead and just use a plunger here to disconnect, or you can use your finger now. Okay, and then we're going to just throw this back on the hot plate because you're going to need to warm up the home button. While that's warming up, we're going to go ahead and take away all these glass shards out of this. Just using an iseasmo tool right now to separate the glass from the frame. I'm gonna have to make sure that frame is completely cleaned off. There's no glass shards anywhere before we put the new screen on. So what I'm doing now is just shaking out the glass shards. Just off camera over here. There's a bunch of glass shards all over the place over here. So I'm just going to use excessive force to scrape off any glass. Be careful to get it off your iseasmo tool. Don't get it on the floor, you're gonna have a bad time. Okay. The next part, we're gonna have to remove this pad to see how bent this iPad is. And see if we can do anything about removing the bend in it. So, got this pretty much cleaned up, and we're going to move this along here. Make sure you touch something metal every time you're working on anything, just in case you get some static electricity. I don't know why that was producing so much. Okay, so the best way to see how bent you are is take it on a flat surface. If it does that, it's really bent. So I do believe just a slight these corners are not as bad, but this one still is a little bit. Okay, so with some bending action, we got the iPad pretty much sitting flat again, which is always a nice thing. So now we got to separate the home button from the broken screen. You should watch very closely. Just trying to move this cable out of the way a little bit here. And give it some room to breathe. Okay, now that we got that, next part is to carefully remove this plastic here, or tape, I should say. Okay, now we're gonna pop the latch very carefully. Now, if you only have a heat gun, just wanna warm this whole thing up for about 30 seconds, hot to the touch. Or on the hot plate for about a minute. Just trying to get a good camera angle. We're going to remove this adhesive that's holding down the home button. It's all around it. Epoxy. Okay. We're going to let's do an Iflex till it's nice and thin. Okay, so I just got it under a little bit and then twist it up. That helped me pop it out. Remember, you want this nice and warm when doing this. You don't want to destroy this paper thin cable. Some more epoxy that we have to deal with underneath this cable. I'll try to show it to you guys here. There's some right here. It's hard to get a good view. We got that epoxy out, and we're going to carefully separate this. And if you're really careful with the display, you would have saved it and can send it off and make some money. Put it back in its original, the new packing. Okay, so we got that out. Now, get this ring, just get your tool under there and pull it out. Okay, and then we're going to set this into the new box. So here's our new screen. Should look like a lot like the original one. Looks identical. It's always a good thing. That means you ordered the right screen. See, we can put this up, ship it back for credit or money back if you're careful. It's quite difficult to be careful with these. They're very difficult to remove. Okay, now onward for the home button insertion. So we're going to go ahead and remove the Tessa tape here, as it's going to be potentially in our way. Here's our home button. If your black tape is not good, you can always put some new Tessa tape. That's the black tape right here and right here. But mine looks pretty good, so I'm not worried about it. Just make sure it's nice and sitting flat. And at this point, you would probably want to test the unit if you bought on eBay or something like that. You want to test it, make sure the Touch ID works and the home button works and everything, screen and all. Now to test the home button, just click this button here, right there, that little button there, and look at the other side while testing it. It's going to be kind of tricky, but that's why I like buying premium parts, because I don't have to worry about any of that. It's really rare to get a bad part. You want to be careful not to rip this or anything like that. It is a very, I guess it's not that important if you do rip it, but it's supposed to be attached, so let's try to leave it attached. Positioning is everything with this. You gotta make sure your position is correct, or it's not gonna sit down in the iPad correctly. Push that little latch down. I'm just kind of eyeballing this whole thing and making sure it's sitting correctly. Then what we want to do is make sure this home button is sitting in there correctly as well. So you can pull this little tape back and make sure your home button feels good. It's not going to click much because of how it's poorly designed. You have to hold down these two buttons or something like that. It's quite the pain. These two brackets, I should say. But you do want to make sure that it works. So just take your time, make sure you're getting it right. Show you guys what I'm doing here. So basically I'm adjusting it here and holding down these two positions and making sure it's clicking. It's not clicking, I'm going to keep on adjusting it until it does. This is being a stubborn one, for sure. Now that it feels good, I'm gonna use some of this E8000. It's kind of like Gorilla Glue. It has a 24 to 72 hour time and 2 to 10 minutes for surface bond time. So it's a little bit faster than Gorilla Glue, but it's a stronger bond than the other stuff that I've used on these videos. So what we want to do is not drop the cap. Okay, I'm gonna lift this up a little bit. Put our tweezers underneath here. No, just about the right position where we want this. I'll put a little glue on my iseasmo tool. And spread it around. Carefully lift this up. Same thing, we'll lift this up a little bit. Just a little bit of glue on the edge of your iseasmo tool. It's more than enough. You're gonna put it underneath there and spread it around. Now you could have done this earlier, but I like to make sure that everything is working and feeling good. So then just press down hard for about a full 1 minute. Make sure your alignment looks really good to your satisfaction. Because once you bond it, you're not moving it. Now you can use Gorilla Glue, but it's going to take about 30 minutes to dry, so be patient with it. Okay, now let's put a little bit around the sides like Apple did. Really seal the deal here. Okay, so this side's a little bit more difficult because there's this really fine piece of cable here. Gotta be careful with. I recommend not hitting the home button for a day if you can with this stuff. You can use super glue, but I've had better success with the stronger glue and people not losing their home buttons. And I'm just going to remove any excess glue. We don't want too much under there. Make sure you're happy with your progress. And let's come back in about 10 minutes. Okay, so I've had problems with this home button here. And so I've moved the actual, I can't even see my finger here. So that cable right there, I've lifted it off the metal bracket. So I glued the metal bracket a little too low and the button wasn't clicking. So I decided to tackle it a little bit later. I removed the glue and then I pushed the bracket all the way up to the top of the iPad here, as high as I can. Then I double checked to make sure it was clicking. And then you know obviously want to make sure that this button is sitting down enough. So it's sitting nice and flush here. And so I lifted this up and then applied some super glue or that B7000 glue if you have it, just around here. And then I put some Tessa tape. I put brand new tape underneath both sides of this and got rid of the original tape. Now the reason why I peeled this off is just because I'm messing with it and I don't want to peel paper off. And then we're going to test it one more time here inside the frame of the iPad. So once we get it inside the frame, then we'll be good to go. And then I'll be clicking this back in here in the next segment of this video. Just be careful not to get any glue on the cable. As you can see there, I'm going to have to clean that off. I accidentally got some glue. Okay, so after you get the home button glued down properly and pushed up all the way, you just want to test it against the frame and make sure it's clicking. So it's clicking pretty well, but remember this frame was a little bit bent, so it can cause some issues. But we got it mostly unbent. So we're just going to go ahead and pop off the screen. Okay, and as you can see, the home button is all glued in. And we're going to go ahead and remove all the Tessa tape and all the tape everywhere around the device. So if yours does not come with tape, then you're going to need to make sure you put Tessa tape around the sides. But the premium ones always come with pre-installed, so link in the description if you're having problems. And at this point you could, before removing all this tape, test to make sure that you didn't damage that home button and test the screen. But like I said, I haven't done any testing. So just test as much as you feel necessary. The one thing I definitely would recommend testing is that home button. You do not want to put this down without testing and making sure that home button is clicking. It's a very delicate home button, so it's quite fragile. Okay, now that all the tape has came unglued or done, I'd recommend a little bit of Gorilla Glue, especially if your iPad has been bent. We really want this to hold down, so the E8000 or Gorilla Glue will work just fine. I'm just gonna put a little bit of a line here where I think the adhesive is the weakest. Just a nice thin little coat. That's enough. All right, now for install. So hopefully you got a nice zoomed in view here. So we're gonna put the iPad, lay it down a little bit to get in there. You wanna use Gorilla Glue, it's slow acting. But you could use super glue on the frame if you have to. Okay, so this is giving me so much trouble. Try to lift this whole thing up a little bit here and give me a little bit more extra room to work with. Because these cables are so tight. That actually helped, is moving that piece out of the way here. Okay, also I do want to mention that I lost one of the screws, so I had to find a replacement one. There we go. Keep stuff organized, guys. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and turn on the iPad. All right, we got visible light. Once again, highly recommend testing this before getting yourself all glued in. Looks like it's sitting down flush. Home button's a little fussy, but that's because the iPad was bent quite a bit, so, but we still got click. I feel like it's about 80% functioning, so it feels good, but just enough. All right, as you can see here, it's nice and flush. That's what you want. If your iPad's extremely bent and you didn't get it bent right, then it's not gonna sit flush. Okay, so it doesn't like the home button, but the home button still works. It's actually sometimes common with this. So if it's unable to activate Touch ID, it could be the actual digitizer panel, and there's nothing we can do about it without replacing the whole screen. I did not get her password for some odd reason, so just randomly typing in passcodes here, but you just want to touch everywhere on the screen and make sure it's fully functioning. This is one of the reasons why you do want to test the Touch ID, by the way, is because you want to make sure it's fully functioning before installing the unit for the customer. But any rips and tears in the cable could have caused this, or maybe even possibly the glue, or you name it. So any number of those things can happen with the iPad, and we're 230, Apple's 500, so I don't guarantee Touch ID, and I would suggest you not guaranteeing Touch ID with your customers, because this cable is very finicky, very difficult to fix, and I swear I have like a 50% success at these home buttons. Sometimes they rip, sometimes they tear, sometimes the Touch ID doesn't work. There's a lot of different factors that can cause that Touch ID not to work. So I don't sit there and rack my brain on a very expensive part and just keep on trying new parts. I just move forward. Okay, so that explains why I didn't do the Touch ID, or why I didn't fully test. And plus I'll fully test once I get that passcode. Anyways, this has been Dustin with TechMD. I appreciate you guys watching the videos. Please like and subscribe, and you guys have a good one. Thanks.